Hi there, Waltineers. I'm Jack, and this is DSNY Newscast. And today's going to be a special episode of DSNY Newscast, as I've only just got back from the Disneyland 70th anniversary media preview for the celebrations. And needless to say, we've got a lot to talk about in terms of news and details for these celebrations, as you've probably seen on social media already. And before I get into all of those details, I actually want to begin from a news perspective talking about what's still yet to come to the anniversary celebrations. So with that being said, let's now hand over to our reporter in the field right now. Thanks, Jack. Now, I'm here on location in Disneyland, and I'm in this particular location because over there in the background is the Main Street Opera House that we all know is home to great moments with Mr. Lincoln. But on July 17th of this year, it's going to be home to something completely new. And that is Walt Disney, A Magical Life, as on July 17th, 70 years after Disneyland Park opened in 1955 on that exact date, on July 17th this year, Walt Disney will be speaking once again in Disneyland, in Walt Disney, A Magical Life. Now, I'm a huge admirer of Walt Disney, so when this project was announced at D23 last year, this is easily the project that I was most excited to see come to fruition. But this is also an extremely important project for Imagineering, probably the most important project that Imagineering have ever worked on, because it is making a Walt Disney audio animatronic figure, something that they've been wanting to do for many, many years, but now the technology is at the point where they can actually make it a reality. Now, we've got some new details about this show, which I want to discuss with you all here. Now, Walt Disney A Magical Life will be approximately around 17 minutes long when it debuts on July 17th. And that's not 17 minutes of Walt talking to the audience. It'll be 15 minutes of the One Man's Dream show that debuted in 2001. But this will be an updated version of One Man's Dream for A Magical Life in Disneyland. And then you've got Walt Disney speaking at the very end of the show, and he'll be speaking for roughly around 2 to 2.5 minutes at the end of the show as the big finale at the end of Walt Disney A Magical Life. Now, that's the runtime of the show, but we've got some details about the audio animatronic figure, which I'm sure all of you want to hear. Now, the audio animatronic figure is said to be a moonshot moment for Imagineering, as in terms of technology, this is the most advanced audio animatronic figure that they've ever made. So we've seen some pretty impressive audio animatronics, such as, you know, the Nave River Shaman over in Pandora at Animal Kingdom. But this is said to be the most advanced audio animatronic ever. Then the other thing is that Walt is going to be speaking. And this isn't going to be any sort of AI reproduction of Walt's voice or, using a voice actor to put words in Walt's mouth. This will be Walt speaking his own words from archival recordings that they've got of Walt talking about Disneyland and his life. And they've remastered this audio so it's crystal clear. And it sounds like Walt is going to be talking directly to you in his own words. In terms of the look of this animatronic figure, this is said to be that Walt Disney from 1963. So it's a point in his life when he was, top of the world in many ways. He had the success of Mary Poppins in 1963. The New York World's Fair was just about to open in 1963 as well, roughly around the time of the CBC interview that was conducted with Walt about all of the ongoing projects he had in 1963. So that's an important note there as well. Now, Imagineering have really taken a lot of care into putting every single detail and nuance into this animatronic figure. As, they've even apparently made sure that the graying of the hair is just right in the way that Walt had in the 1960s. And he has wrinkles on his hands, and he looks as he did in the 1960s. And the reason why they've gone to this level of detail for this animatronic isn't because but this is just, the founder of the company or co-founder of the company with Walt and Roy. But it really matters that they get this animatronic to look as much like Walt Disney, because we all know what Walt Disney looked like. We have video footage of what Walt looked like, but also everybody now has a telephoto lens in their pocket. So everyone will be able to zoom in to this animatronic figure and see if it actually does look like Walt. Then there's other things like
It was often said about Walt Disney by people who met him that he had a kind of glimmer to his eye when you were talking to him. And Imagineering are even trying to replicate that with this animatronic. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're trying to even get that level of detail into this animatronic for Walt Disney A Magical Life. Now, it's not just about the show aspect, but there's also going to be 2 exhibits within the lobby of the Main Street Opera House for this show for everyone to explore. And Disney's partnering not only with the Walt Disney Family Museum, but also pulling from Walt Disney Archives and Imagineering's archives for these 2 exhibits. Now, one is going to be an all-new gallery, which will feature the evolution of Walt's dream of Disneyland. So pulling directly from the archives so you can see how Disneyland came to be. And also there's going to be another exhibit which will be the story and history of audio animatronic technology from Walt's day leading to the advancement of where we are today. That's how it's been described, at least. Don't know if that's the title of the exhibit. Now, that's going to be really interesting from a technological standpoint to see just how the animatronic started and see the latest and greatest and the most advanced audio animatronic figure that Imagineering has ever made with this Walt Disney animatronic figure. So they're going to be working with the Walt Disney Family Museum to bring in artifacts within the actual exhibits themselves, and these are going to be on loan to Disneyland. And I'm guessing they're going to be on loan just within the 70th anniversary celebration period for these exhibits. And then after the celebration ends, within like a year-long run of this whole thing, Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln will return. It's on a turntable, so therefore it'll be playing in rotation. No pun intended there, but playing in rotation where you'll see Walt Disney A Magical Life and then Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln as well within the same theatre, but, you know, alternate between the 2 of them. So that's everything we know so far about Walt Disney A Magical Life, and it will be debuting on July 17th. Now, back over to you, Jack, in the studio.
You know what? I think that guy might have a future talking about Disney news on YouTube. But anyway, that's what's happening on July 17th. But we don't have to wait till July 17th to begin the anniversary celebrations, as they're actually beginning May 16th. Disneyland is celebrating happy. So right now, the celebrations are beginning at Disneyland. And that's what I want to talk about first is the theme of the celebration. Now, the reason why they're using that as the tag for this whole celebration is because it's the happiest place on earth, after all, and so therefore they're celebrating the happiness that Disneyland's brought to the world. Now, the decorations for the celebration, after walking around the entire resort and seeing them for myself with my own eyes, they've done a great job with the decorations for the celebration, and they're extremely colourful and vibrant with blues, yellows, pinks and purples in the decorations around the resort. But this time around, it's not going to be using, you know, precious gemstones like we saw with the diamond celebration for the 60th, or precious metals like we've seen with golden decorations before as well. Instead, it was described to us during a presentation as being like the biggest birthday party ever that they're throwing for Disneyland. So that's where the inspiration for these decorations are coming from. That's why they're vibrant and colourful around the resort. They're throwing a big birthday celebration. And I'm guessing for the 75th anniversary, in 5 years' time, they'll probably move back towards precious gemstones for the inspiration behind the decorations, as I think it's sapphire for 75 for an anniversary, so maybe that might be the theme for the 75th. And also there's a special Magic Band Plus interaction that you can do around the resort. So if you have the Disneyland 70th Magic Band, you can go to special locations, and if you scan the Magic Band, it will then dispense specially printed anniversary cards with that special edition Magic Band Plus. Also, in terms of merchandise, there's this thing that's an interactive key to Disneyland. That's what it's called, the key to Disneyland. And if you go around Disneyland Park, they're spread out with one in each land around Disneyland Park, and you got to put the key into each one of the keyholes in the different locations, and if you do it to all 9 of them, then the actual key itself will unlock a commemorative pin, and there's one of 9 commemorative pins in each one of these keys. Now, there is a slight hack that you can do where if you put a safety pin into the back of the little hole on the back of the key itself, and hold it down for 3 seconds, it should pop open. Just in case you don't get the time to actually go around and get every single location done, you still get access to that pin. And so there's more interactivity around the resort, and I like the fact that the merchandise plays with that interactivity. And they're really leaning into the vintage aspect of all of this and the nostalgia of it it all. And personally, that's the kind of merchandise that I gravitate towards, is the nostalgia-based vintage merchandise that's been updated for us to purchase now. I love that kind of stuff. But in terms of just merchandise in general across Disney parks this year, I've noticed a huge shift in the style of designs, and I just really, from a graphic design perspective, think that they really are knocking out the park in terms of the merchandise designs this year for Disneyland, Walt Disney World, even Disneyland Paris when I went there this year as well. There's some great stuff going on. But anyway, so that's the merchandise side of things. Food and beverage, they've got 70 new food and drink items across all of the Disneyland Resort, and obviously the 70 new items there to celebrate the 70th, and they've all been specially created to celebrate the anniversary. Now, in terms of entertainment offerings, there's a lot of new offerings for the anniversary celebrations, and the first thing I want to talk about is World of Color Happiness. That's at Disney California Adventure, obviously, and we actually got an early media preview of the show itself, and all the guests in the park as well at the same time did. And I actually got the opportunity to interview a producer for World of Color Happiness and ask some questions that I had about the show after seeing it. And so let's go to that interview right now.
Hi there, Waltineers. I'm here with a producer from Disney Live Entertainment, Duncan. Hello. Congratulations on the show, World of Color Happiness. It's a fantastic show. Saw it the other night. This is actually my second time seeing World of Color. The first one was the original show that returned to the park, but I've got to say, this one I think is my new personal favourite with this show.
Awesome, glad you love it.
It's brilliant. Just got some questions about the actual, the development of the show. This is, I believe, is the 7th iteration of the show. How do you go about choosing the actual musical segments, the IPs, the movies that get selected for World of Color, considering that there's been 7 iterations, you've covered an awful lot within the actual, World of Color itself. How do you choose these IPs in particular?
So really it all comes back to what the central theme of the show is. So for this one, we're celebrating happy across the resort. So we were leaning hard into that concept of happiness. And so really it takes a lot of creative deliberation. We play with different combinations, different sequences, and it's all about carrying that central theme and trying to find which songs in the right order really help resonate that central tenet and help give you that story arc across the show. So there's always ones on the cutting room floor, and there's always new ones we swap in, but we've got an amazing creative team that helps bring some new takes on things and proposes some options that we may not have ever considered.
Because you have Powerline, obviously a Goofy movie. Everyone loves Powerline from Goofy movie. And you got Turning Red represented, and Villains even in one of the segments as well. Villains Land coming up at Walt Disney World as well. So is there a lot of fan feedback that comes into the show, or is it purely what works creatively for the show?
So it is purely what works for the show, but we're fans too. I grew up in the generation of Goofy movie, and we're finding new ways to celebrate it. And so the things that resonate with us tend to be the same things that resonate with guests, and trying to find new ways of expressing the show, and really it's just finding some new interesting things that we haven't done before, and not playing the same songs.
When it comes to Inside Out 2, obviously huge success last year, box office. Obviously that we didn't know that in advance, whether that was going to be something that was going to happen. With the creative production of the actual show, did that begin before Inside Out 2 came out last year, or was it like a pivot towards Inside Out 2?
So this concept did originate before Inside Out 2. We were able to lean into some of the new characters brought out, but our concept of having the emotions help explore the concept of happiness actually started before the movie came out.
Incredible look, in a way, brilliant, and very popular movie, When it comes to the pre-show to the thing, because I think a lot of people thought with the pre-show, it was going to be a shorter, like 30-second show. And it's obviously the Muppets and the Muppets 70th anniversary as well being celebrated. Could you speak a little bit more and elaborate on how it was working with the Muppets in the show? Because it's kind of the first time the Muppets have had a big nighttime show at Disneyland Resort like this, having their own mini show before World of Color.
Yeah, it is the first time the Muppets have been in a spectacular like this. And I'm a huge Muppet fan. So many of the team are huge Muppet fans. And when we're talking about the concept of happiness, the Muppets were a natural inclusion. We wanted to give them a moment, and there's something about the Muppets that just makes you feel happy, that gives you that sense of home and joy. And so we figured there would be a wonderful way to start the show and give you a message before the show starts. We give them their own moment. They help give a message to the audience, and it goes wrong in all the best Muppet ways. And really, they just seem like they should be included.
There's also another element to this show, which is there's an interactivity component where guests will be able to vote throughout the day on the 4 emotions, which are sadness, anger, envy, and disgust. And whichever one is the winner gets a special kind of feature within the actual show itself.
Yeah, we let the guests kind of help influence the show that they're going to see that night. We have sprinkling throughout the show. They get these featured moments, and we really wanted to help give guests the ability to interact with the show. We've got moments throughout the show where we encourage them to sing and dance, and we really wanted to focus on giving guests a chance to be part of the show.
Yeah. And you didn't have Joy in the lineup for the vote here, but I can see Joy just off camera.
I mean, we have to have the person who leads our show.
Hello,
Joy's joining us.
Hi. And Joy does a fantastic job of just telling the story in World of Colour, keeping everything going.
I mean, who best to talk about happiness than Joy herself?
Happiness and joy go hand in hand, don't they? So.
Exactly.
Personally, I think that this World of Colour Happiness show is so good that it could hang around after the anniversary celebrations. Oftentimes, anniversary shows are very much tied to the theme of the show itself, but with it being happiness and also the IP and the movies that they use within the show itself and using inside out characters within the show, I think that I asked the question about when it came into the creative process, but I actually think the colours of the inside out characters work fantastically for the show itself as a narrative thread to try and tie all the different segments together. As sometimes World of Colour, the previous iterations, can sometimes feel like a bit of a clip show, and this definitely didn't feel like that. They felt like there was a narrative thread to the show. So I've only ever seen the original World of Colour and this one, and I would say this is right up there with the original. And also it's got that fantastic Muppet introduction to the show, and I thought when hearing about this it was going to be like a 30-second introduction. It turned out to be like a full 5-minute show, mini show for World of Colour and the Muppets, and I think this was the first time the Muppets have ever had like a nighttime mini show like this in the park, so it's great to see that. And obviously the Muppets are very colourful as well, so it works with the fountains and World of Colour. And then there was also the connection between that and the 70th anniversary of the Muppets. That's the reason why they wanted the Muppets to be part of this World of Colour show. We were told that they brought the Muppets in because they're celebrating their 70th this year as well. And Rainbow Connection worked brilliantly. It kind of makes you wonder, why have they never used Rainbow Connection before in World of Colour in this big prominent way, because it literally is a rainbow of colours in the show. And then the next thing, Tapestry of Happiness, we got to see this as well. Now this is a projection show that was around 5 minutes long, and it's projected onto the facade of It's a Small World, and for being a projection show like this, it's extremely detailed and full of little Easter eggs throughout the whole projection show, and it's beautifully done graphics in the style of Disney legend Mary Blair, and it celebrates the entire resort's history. But I just liked the little nods that they had there to like the Sherman brothers at one point within the show featured. And I also think I spotted Rolly Crump, the legendary Imagineer Rolly Crump, who worked on Small World as well at the New York World's Fair, being represented within the show as well. So I highly recommend checking out Tapestry of Happiness if you're there. It's going to be playing quite a few times throughout the night, so you should be able to watch it at some point. Then that played directly before we had a chance to see Paint the Night. Now, Paint the Night hasn't been at the Disneyland Resort since 2018, and it hasn't been in Disneyland Park since January of 2017. So needless to say, this was a much anticipated return to Disneyland, and there are some smaller updates to Paint the Night. So they've updated Tinkerbell's costume for the opening float of Paint the Night, and also the opening drum on that first float has been updated with a change of graphics and some of the lights there. And they've also switched out the finale song from Paint the Night with Celebrate Happy, which is the official anthem or theme of the celebrations. You're going to hear it everywhere. It's performed by the Jonas Brothers, and I've got to admit, it is fairly catchy. And you know what? It's just nice to know that there's going to be a nighttime parade in Disneyland, and later this summer, you know, we're going to get Starlight Dream the Night Away at Walt Disney World. And finally, it's been a while since we've had this, but 2 nighttime parades happening on each coast. Personally, very excited to see that one, as from what I can see in the artwork, it looks very Spectro Magic-esque, and it seems like it's taking a lot of inspiration from previous parades with that kind of classic Disney vibe. So yeah, Paint the Night coming back, fantastic seeing it once again. There's also something else, which is they let us see a preview of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Live, the Disney Junior show there. And I've got to say, I've got a little one, and we go to the Disney Junior show at Hollywood Studios an awful lot. But this was a full 18-minute show with Mickey, Minnie, Pluto, Goofy, Daisy, all on stage, and Mickey and Minnie on stage for the entirety of the show. And I can't wait for my son to see this show. It was something that isn't just for the little ones to dance to. It had, a narrative thread throughout the show, which made it more interesting for the parents to watch. So really do go check that out. It's fantastic. I really did enjoy the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse Live, because I do watch a lot of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse at the moment. So it's great to see that as well. Now, there's also the Cavalcade called Celebrate Happy Cavalcade, and Duffy and Shelley Mayer within the Cavalcade there. It's a cavalcade. I can't really give much of a review of the cavalcade itself. It is what it is. But then I do want to mention that I had the opportunity to speak with Disneyland president, the new Disneyland president, being on the job for around 7 weeks, I think, Thomas Mazloum. Now, Thomas Mazloum comes from the Disney Signature Experiences division over to being president of Disneyland, and I had a good chat with him, and I've got to say, this guy, he understands it. He gets it. He understands Disneyland from a historical perspective and the weight that that carries in the world of not just themed entertainment, but the world in general, how important Disneyland is as an American institution, an American icon. Disneyland is very important from that perspective, but he also has a reverence for the resort, which I really did like hearing, that he really has a love of the Disney parks and also Disneyland, and understands the importance of the role of being president of Disneyland. So had a good chat with him there, and I think Disneyland and Disneyland Forward and all the different projects that are going on at the resort, I think the resort in general is in safe hands with Thomas Mazloum there. And so that's the anniversary celebrations, what we can experience right now, but I'm looking forward to going back out there for July 17th. I'm going to see Walt Disney A Magical Life. I've got to see that show. I've been wanting to see a Walt Disney AA for a long time, and they're finally making it reality, so I have to go out there and check it out for myself. So I'll be heading back out to Disneyland for the actual 70th. But with that being said, now it's over to you, the Waltineers, as I would like to know what are your thoughts and opinions on the Disneyland 70th anniversary offerings. Which of the offerings are you most impressed with? What are you most excited to experience and see for yourself at the 70th anniversary celebrations of the Disneyland Resort? And also be sure to subscribe down below, hit the notification bell, and also check out the rest of the videos on the channel. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to the official Waltineer Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel. And I want to give a special shout out to the Waltineer Gold members that you can see here on the screen right now, as well as Waltineer Diamond members JC Russell, Tim Parsons, Justin Tupper, and Clive Simmons. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.